way through the ranks. In other words, as you learn your job, let's say we call them helpers or a GU, general utility workers. When you see a crew out in the street working in a structure in a manhole, usually two people. One is a GU, general utility worker, and the other is a mechanic, mechanic A, mechanic B, and that person's usually the splicer. And you had the opportunity to become the GU and then work to be a mechanic B and then a mechanic A. And eventually you could become a supervisor of those crews simply by working through the ranks, learning the job. And that took place for a long period of time, but as time progressed, we began to have more supervisors and management people come from young people like you, from college. Different programs were designed to bring you to the company, young cadets, young engineers, and you were placed out there. You went through a program. Now we have a program called the Gold Program, and you come in and you go out in the field and you run these crews, and you perhaps know nothing about what a splice is, but because of your training, because of your expertise in, quote, learning how to lead people, they give you that opportunity to grow. Some people have done well, but at the same time it restricted those who came up through the ranks. One of the things is that you need to know what the folks are doing if you're going to lead them out in the field and substations and on through many facets. So that kind of growth began to be reduced for people who were growing up in the ranks of the company. And then eventually that employment office vanished. It's no longer there. Now things are done online. Recruitment is done with personnel from the company going to schools and recruiting young engineers and young people to come to the company. It's more sophisticated now. We heard one of our top executives say that it's more difficult to get into Con Edison now than it is to get into Harvard University, and that's incredible. All right, so it's changed over the years that I've been in the company.
Do you feel that New York City was financially mismanaged in the 1970s?
New York City has been financially mismanaged through the ages. You can go back in history. Just look at one of the things that I admire, I love about New York City are our bridges. And you can go back in history and read about the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge and some of the things that happened with the wire that was used to form the cables. And some bad wire got in that. But a lot of that had to do with money. And that's what's, unfortunately, to a certain extent, has been the destruction of the city from the onset. Mismanagement. And then, of course, the other thing I have to say is that when folks are greedy, somebody else is going to suffer. So whether it be, and here we are going through the day now, the state is attempting to find a solution to the MTA wanting to raise the fare, and what they call it the doomsday budget. And so all of this is mismanagement from the state, from Albany, and then to our local politicians. So I feel that's been a problem.
All right. During the year of 1977, there was a huge blackout. Yeah.
Yes.
You knew we were going to ask me about it.
It was a blackout. Yeah. Yes.
So can you tell us what happened during that day?
You know, it's interesting that you asked that because I reviewed that in anticipation of this question, and I can't believe you did ask me. But what happened? First of all, you have to understand the nature of the electrical system. And I brought you fellas some handouts that I'll give you after the interview.
Oh, thank you.
All right, but happened, you have to understand that electrically, we are tied in to everybody. And what I mean by that is that we're tied into Canada. Other utilities are tied into one another. And the system is designed to have safety features. And in many of those, the substations, the generating stations, there are items called breakers. And these breakers are designed to, if they sense an overload of current coming from point A to point B, and it threatens the equipment, it threatens the transformers, they're designed to sense that and close the breaker to protect that particular feeder. All right. With that, there was a breaker upstate New York in Westchester. Two substations were involved, Springbrook, and I believe it may have been, let's see, further north, when they sensed the overload, the breaker didn't close correctly. Okay, and once that started, it was like a chain reaction. Okay, and once it sensed that it wasn't operating correctly, the feed is overloaded. Okay, then the other substations and the other breakers began to sense that, and this is simply speaking, and they began to shut down. And once they shut down, it was like a domino effect. Then other feeders overloaded, their stations shut down, and on and on and on until you had a blackout. And basically that's what happened. And after that blackout, of course, reviews took place and said we can never have this happen again. And designs were put into place to ensure that inspections of the breakers and other equipment were done to attempt to eliminate that kind of problem. But we also have to understand that anything man-made, and I don't care how many safety factors you put in, it's going to break down at one point or another. Con Ed has perhaps a reliability rating that's incredible. If you travel out of New York State, out of New York City, folks can tell you in urban area and the country areas that they have brownouts and blackouts maybe once, 2, 3 times a month, whereby we don't experience that because of the design of our system. Blackouts or burnout, service burnout can take place locally, but our system is designed to try to eliminate and reduce the number of people that are going to be out at the same time. So, but the 77 blackout was basically because of equipment failure.
All right. Where were you during this blackout?
77. I had just gotten off, and then once something like that happens, call the office, and you get in. You get in the best way that you can, and the attempts are made to restore the system. And you simply can't go to the wall and turn the switch on. You have to do things in sequence in order to restore power back to the city. Let me quickly explain how we supply electricity to the city. Brooklyn is divided into basically 13 to 14 different networks. Okay, each network is supplied by a substation. The substation that supplies Brooklyn College, let's say, those are our 10B feeders, and they come out of a substation called Bensonhurst. Okay, and they're anywhere from 12 to 18 feeders that radiate into a network we call Flatbush. The Flatbush network doesn't necessarily correlate with the neighborhood of Flatbush. It correlates with what we call our Flatbush network and feeds a certain area. Those 12 to 18 feeders supply voltage